to Let Me Finish, a podcast by Figure Eight. I'm Figure Eight. We left off with me, Swiggle, and Lie making a song together, which was kind of the deciding factor to me and Swiggle starting to work on our first little EP together, because instead of just releasing song after song with him, I figured I have 3 now, so that's enough to work with. From the time of that first show, when I went to see Swiggle, I talked to John Brannon, the guy that was throwing it, and convinced him to put me on his next show. So I had booked a music video with Swiggle's videographer for the same day. And I was just trying to, get in with Swiggle and the group and make sure, I was trying to get added to La Familia for sure. So I was doing anything I can to pursue that. I wasn't going to ask for it, but it felt like something that I had watched people earn. So that was my, going to be my goal. And I picked the day of my first show, and that was me and young Ned rehearsed for weeks in a shed. One of the days I dislocated my knee. We weren't even doing anything intense, just the shed that we rehearsed in had a slanted cement floor, and I was standing on it and got a little bit too into the rehearsal, and my leg just slipped and my knee dislocated, and I screamed on the ground for, 5 minutes before Ned just kicked me and it popped it back into place. So Ned was my hype man, and I had a bunch of horrible songs, so it was not going to be a great show. And I think that was around the time I started to feel like the music wasn't as good as I felt like I was. So that was the only thing that made me nervous about that show. I wasn't nervous about performing in front of people or doing any of that, because when I was in high school, I performed in front of those thousands of people, and those songs were even worse. So I was at least more comfortable with the performance part. It was the art that I was presenting that I was stressed about. And, young Ned being my hype man. So when we had that show, it was at the TARDIS room, the same place I saw Swiggle perform. And I got to do my set about 30-40 minutes into the show, so the crowd wasn't huge or anything, but there was people there. And I met a rapper named T. Jones that day. He was hanging out with Justin Joy, who I knew was in La Familia, Swiggle's group, so I was trying to hang out with them. And I met a dude named Energetic, who will come up again shortly. But I also met the Third Eye Goonies, I believe. And either way, the performance went really well. Despite me thinking those songs were garbage, the energy and crowd participation that I put into it and got, for sure, I assumed was a bit more impressive for someone's first show, because you make sure to tell people it's your first show, because you're going to get extra claps. But after that show, I went up to John Brannon, and I was like, can I do another one? And he booked me for another one where I was going to co-headline with, I think, an artist named Tripolar, if I remember correctly. And I invited everybody to come to the video shoot that I was doing that day for a song called Channel. If you want to see that video, it's on our Patreon exclusively, because I've tried to wipe the internet of it. So yeah, I feel like I thought it was going to be this cool thing, and I invited every rapper that I had met over that time to come to that video, and everybody said they were going to try, so I had some confidence at least some people would show up. And that same day, D-Marks, another rapper in Portland who used to be really, really big, he ended up moving to Florida, and I think he'll make a song here and there, but he's not as intense as he once was. He bought a feature from a dude named Il Chris from Seattle, who at that point had toured with Juice WRLD and Ski Mask and was doing big things. It was a big feature, big thing that he was bringing him down to Portland, so everybody went there. I ended up picking Lie up from that show after the music video, because we were going to hang out and work on music, just us and him. And he had gone to that D-Mark shoot, and once I heard that was what was happening and got kind of thrown together last minute, I was like, well, that's a reasonable reason not to come to my show or shoot, because nobody knows me at all. But I did get booked for that co-headlining show with Tripolar from that TARDIS room show at another show at the fucking TARDIS room. Around that time, I had started trying to work on this project called Integrated, where I was going to have the Fish produce songs, and I work with different Portland artists on them. And I had made a few songs for it that I was just trying to get people on. And I had asked a few artists, and T. Jones at that first show I did overheard me and said, "Hey, would you get on my album?" And that was the first time anybody other than Ellis up to that point had asked me for a feature. So I did it, and I think the next week Santavo of the Third Eye Goonies asked me for one, and I sent it right away because it was like me and Tag just felt like it was the only way to potentially push us forward and get anyone to know who we are, was working with people that were already involved in the scene. Um, Around that time, Chris stopped being like the Fish manager because he was doing college and working more than all of us. So Tag kind of took it over from the Chris and Gareth duo, and man, was that such a fucking mess, because that's not the environment or role for Tag, but he definitely did his best and was calling venues and artists and trying to do shit. But it was for sure both of us were in fish out of water. No pun intended. We did not know the industry we were navigating, because I had existed in this realm where I was doing things right. I was distributing music before people were really doing that. I was releasing CDs and flash drives and selling them after people had kind of stopped doing that. I was buying features from big artists, all from like before I was even 16. So I was doing things at an industry at least adjacent level, but I wasn't doing anything properly. We would pay for a big feature and we wouldn't mix it. We would make a bunch of CDs, but we wouldn't post about it or go walk around and sell it. We would distribute it, but not promote it. Like, it was, we just thought the art would speak for itself or some shit. And then we learned that we had to prove ourselves a little bit, especially because I'm not from Portland and this is the scene we were trying to get into. So we started working with people a lot. T. Jones paid for like my first 4K video. It was a feature that I did for him. And at that point, I was just trying to build the brand. So anytime someone asked me to do anything, I was like, well, can the Fish cameo in the video? Or can the Fish produce the song? Or can the Fish come to the photo shoot? And so, like, there's cameos from the Fish in those early shits. There's, like, Young Ned played homeless people. Me and Tag turned up in the background of Swiggle and Justin Joy videos. It was a full court press of an effort. And I think around that time we were getting more and more beats sent from Energetic, the guy I met at that first show. We really liked each other's styles. We hit it off talking outside. He's a super cool dude. We ended up making a song called Godzilla, and when Swiggle came over, that was the first song that, like, I asked him to get on instead of him picking a beat and starting the song. And to my understanding, like, my manager Max to this day and a few people I've talked to at shows still say they like that song, and I've tried to revisit it. Man, that first Fig and Swig project is so bad. Like, Swiggle did fine, but the beats are trash, and I'm like, there's nothing redeemable in my mind about what I did there. I'm very thankful for it still and everything it did for me, but for sure I run from that. So that co-headlining show that John Brandon booked us for after my first show, we finally got to that day, and I actually did get a chunk of people there. I think Lai showed up and a few other members of some different groups to support me. And right before it was my time to go up, the venue pulled the plug on the power and said they weren't making enough at the bar and shut it down. So I was freaking out and upset at John Brandon, and he just kept saying there was nothing he could do. So I grabbed an MP3 player out of some Justin Joy's car, actually. He went and grabbed an MP3 for me, and I stood up on one of the tables outside of the venue, and I did my set. And I remember a couple of people went live on Facebook and stuff, and it went, like, to me, it was viral at the time. Like, it would get 4,000 or 5,000 views and a couple hundred likes. Like, somebody posting, they shut down the venue, rapper still performs outside. Like, it was the first time where I was like, okay, not only are people recognizing me in person, but online, there's a little bit of a presence of me now. And, you know, I had Young Ned there hyping me up. I think Tag was there. And, So I was still pretty upset, and everybody was so on my side that John Brandon was like, "Hey, I'll book you a solo headlining show. You can just headline it here." I was like, "Sick." So 3 weeks later, he hadn't sent me a flyer for it still. So like I was freaking out because it was like 3 days away, and he wouldn't answer the phone, and I was so inexperienced at the time that I didn't know all these were like extreme red flags. The show's not happening. So Tag called the venue eventually, and they said they had nothing booked that day, that he never talked to them. And in fact, they weren't trying to work with him anymore for some reason. So, but they did say they didn't have anything that day. So me and Tag said, okay, can we book a show there? I think it was $100. And we went and booked, I booked Makes Waves, DC Capital, D Marks, Timmy Hendrix, Justin Joy, Swiggle Mandela, Lie the Most High. Like I booked all these people that I had kind of just met, and a lot of La Familia because I was trying to get in there. And me and Tag produced and threw and paid for and hosted the whole show. Young Ned was there helping the whole time. I think Gareth was there helping the whole time. Andrew was there. It was such an intense night, and we made some money at the door, and I got to pay some of the artists, and like it was just I've thrown, me and Ellis were doing the math, I've probably thrown a couple hundred shows just personally in my 10 years of doing this, well, and I think it all started with the fact that me and Tag had about 48 hours to book, set up, make flyers for, do everything for a show. And we did, and it was successful. We made money. I remember Timmy fell off the stage and like kept rapping, and it was this big moment that people still bring up to me. That was so foundational, I think, in the Fish being an actual presence in Portland. And we booked the Black Pioneers to DJ it, which at the time was just 9-4 Prince and Cold Leroy, I believe. And I don't know which one I had met prior. I think it was Cold Leroy I had met prior. And at the end of the show, Prince told me that when I was pulling up, Cold Leroy called me and said, "Hey, this is your contact. This is his name. This is his number. It's a white dude." And he was bummed that it was a white dude. And then he was like, he's from Detroit. And then he was less bummed. And he was glad he did the show because not only did we pay him right after, and I guess they had been having some trouble with that. We wanted to set up another one. We were professional. We were on time. We helped him take everything down. And that's what has carried over still to this day. We are still so involved with any show we throw. We're bussing tables. We're running the door. We're running tickets. We're running security. We're cleaning things up when they get messy. We're just trying to do everything so that a venue has a good experience. The customers have a good experience. Our fans have a good experience. And it was so hard to find hip hop at the time in Portland. I Googled it a few times, and I wouldn't find Portland rappers. I would find articles about how Portland is fundamentally against hip hop. So we just wanted to make sure that we as like fucking white people were setting hip hop up for success instead of being the reason a venue wouldn't allow it anymore. To come into someone else's culture and then take away opportunities from them was the opposite of what we were trying to do. But yeah, that first show, I think, set up the hundreds and hundreds of shows we've thrown since then. And it was the first time we felt seen. And me and Tag did almost all of that work by ourselves. And a lot of people see Tag as like a background guy now because that's the role that he always wanted and he's at now. He gets to sing now, and he wasn't really singing back then at all or ever. And he gets to be a part of shows. He gets to be in Catcall, his band with Young Ned and Janessa. But back then it was like, I think me and him formed the close bond that we have now because we were thrust into this stuff that neither of us knew anything about, but we were trying our best to make it work. And also La Familia finally understood that like we weren't just some guys they were making songs with out of their room, that we were trying as hard as we absolutely could. So like I got close to Timmy after that. I got much closer with Lai after that. That's one of my favorite memories from that early time, and it came after such a shitty thing, and we got screwed. But if we didn't get screwed, we wouldn't have learned the lessons of anything can be fixed when it comes to a show, a song, a music video. We just have to find the solution, and we've lived with that ever since. We barely ever cancel anything, maybe 2 in the past 3 years. I'm gonna end the episode there. I'll see you next time. And as always, before you interrupt me, let me finish.